I would say that Peruvians are really flattered when people from another culture, another country, really far from this continent, tries to understand us, to get to know our history. Like from when I've been all my life in Lima, the coast of Peru has been always very receptive with immigrants from other countries. It can be Europeans, Asians, even Africans.
So, Alvaro, the first thing I want to discuss about Peru is actually not the nature beauty in Peru, which is breathtaking and world class. As people who don't know, Peru contains abundance of cuisines. The most famous one, perhaps, is influenced by Inca culture. Furthermore, cuisines that influenced by Spanish colonization and Asian immigration, especially the country in Japan and Cantonese. So the first question I want to ask you about, Alvaro, is which dish you love the most and which dish really represent Peru?
Oh well, that's a good question. I would say that Peru really don't have any plate or any dish that can represent it like uniquely. I think Peru has really a cuisine for every part of it. Maybe the coast have the ceviche, lomo saltado, the causa that are I think the most renowned. But the Andean culture and Andean gastronomy also have the pachamanca, el rocoto relleno. It also has the cuy chactado that is traditional to some parts of Peru. And also, the Amazonian culture has its own postmort from bananas, and also with potatoes and fish from the rivers, maybe from the not only from the Amazonas. Many different variants of dishes in Peru. And speaking about communities, the black community also when they were brought by the Spaniards as slaves, they took the way to replicate their food and their ways of cooking into the local cultures and gastronomy that they had in their disposition. So they also combined some native ingredients like potato or yuquito, and they also combine that with their own recipes. They are like constantly assimilating other influences. The recent immigration from Japanese people in the not so recent, but for Peruvian mothers is in the recent that they came in the early 20th century. So they brought up also the Nikkei fusion with Peruvian ingredients. So you have maquis that are composed with pollo a la brasa, lomo saltado. You know, it's like Peru. It's constantly evolving. It's not like linear. We like to learn also from another cuisines and dishes. So recipes are always changing.
I would love to share about the gastronomy culture in Asia, especially places where it is heavily influenced by Chinese culture. Countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, China. And I would say the biggest event in a year we had is 农历新年, which is the Chinese New Year. And in Chinese New Year, the most important thing is to eat together. That's how we bond our relationship with families. So no matter how busy you are, how busy my relatives are, my cousins are, they will have to join the table together. And despite sometimes it will be awkward because after we grow up, we barely have time to see each other. But anyways, food actually bring us back together. And there will be many, many lavish dish on the table cooked by my grandma and my mom and some of my cousins. Always be a signature dish on the table. And for my family, it's the pork knuckle. So every time when I saw pork knuckle, it transformed me to Chinese New Year. So what dish, Alvaro, appear the most in your family's table?
The plate that I love most when I was a kid it was pollo a la brasa. I think every Peruvian has some kind of emotional history related to that. It could be with friends or with family. Something that happened when they ate this. But personally, I think one dish that I really enjoyed when I was a kid, and reminds me of those times with my grandma, with my mother when I was really really young. Is the harines verdes, like is here is mixed like spaghetti, green spaghetti with chicken, with milanesa. So it is not the same milanesa as in Argentina, but it is some kind of um, um, chicken that is filled with bread, with pulverized bread. So you cook it with the oven, or you put that in the spaghetti. We also have these memories of maybe beans that is also a constant, or any any food like those types.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, Alvaro, do you cook yourself? And what's the culture there? Um, what's the gender there in Peru for cooking? Because in my country, especially in Taiwan, especially our culture, normally woman cooks more traditionally. So, Alvaro, do you love to cook? And in your culture, do women cook more than men?
Oh no, here in Peru, I think it's the other way around, because the most famous Peruvian chefs are of men. So men are usually Gastronomy the owner of Bonito, that is the best restaurant in the world from the last year, and also Central. Those restaurants are filled with men, but in the I think Peruvians don't actually separate cooking with for men or for women. I think Peruvians just like to eat, and they don't see that way. That I think this is more of a modern take, because I actually have some stories from my grandfather that he wasn't allowed to know how to cook. So because his mother would say, "You're a man, you can cook because it is a disgrace. You are." They started to doubt on his sexuality, so people were like close-minded. But people today they don't see that cooking is for women, cooking is for men. I think people just, in fact, it is common that men and women share the responsibilities in cooking. So maybe one moment for example, when I was a kid, um, I helped my mother with slicing vegetables, with cooking eggs, frying something in the oven or in the with the pan. So it is something that you don't actually hear here in Peru, that cooking is for men or cooking is for women.
Well, actually, I'm quite shocked you mentioned spaghetti. And for my perception, is actually more dishes like maisho, which leans more indigenous based food. And perhaps there is a Italian influence in Peru. And so, Alvaro, can you elaborate more about that?
Yeah, of course. I think it is kind of biased in the way that the coast where I've been where I've grown, where I've been all my life, Lima. The coast of Peru has been always very receptive with immigrants from other countries. It can be Europeans, Asians, even Africans. Africans actually were brought by slavery by the Spanish, but they established only in the coast. You can find historical black communities in the Andes or in the Amazonas, because people from other countries only migrate to the coast. This is a trend that is changing in these times for Venezuelan immigration. But the reality is that the coast of Peru has been heavily influenced by European, Asians, African immigrants. So it is, I think, it is represented in my childhood, because when I've been in homes with more of a Andean ancestry or heritage, they would cook pachamanca, ocopa, another food dishes with cuy, guinea pigs. Maybe it's the most extreme example, but it's like so representative of that. And I almost never ate that in my childhood. So for me, it was like it is not difficult for me to eat those things. But yeah, that is influenced because of the Italian influence, especially in Lima. There were there were even Italian clubs in Lima before even the Andean people came in mass in the 50s.
So as we're doing podcast, Alvaro, I couldn't take my eyes away from your T-shirt, which writes Inca Kola. I think there's a meaning you wore that shirt today. Can you tell us about?
Yeah, this is a this is a brand of Peruvian cola and Peruvian soda that is very famous here, and it could never be defeated by Inca Kola, Coca-Cola, Fanta, Sprite, those foreign brands of sodas, because people here mix. In fact, they mix this brand of soda with typical Peruvian food. So you could see lomo saltado with Inca Kola. You could see so many dishes that are perfectly and also so very well blend with this drink. So you can see that it is a very strong part of Peruvian culture. I even I even wore this shirt when I went to Argentina. The first day I arrived, I used this t-shirt, and also many people associate Peru with Inca Kola.
So prior, as we mentioned, gastronomy, the itinerary, the nature beauty of Peru is breathtaking. So on Instagram or on other platform on social media, if you're very passionate about traveling and you do research South America, most likely the algorithm will fit you with those breathtaking scenery in Peru. So it's a no-brainer to travel Peru to see Machu Picchu, or if you dive deeper, perhaps city like Huacachina, Minicunca, Cusco. Yet the capital city of Peru, which is Lima, isn't highly celebrated by those visitors and travelers. So, Alvaro, you as a native Peruvian who lived in Lima for 2 decades, is there any itinerary that you highly recommended people to travel in the city of Lima?
I think Lima has a strong has a strong Spanish maybe influence, but I think Lima is more like you are doing your business, you are doing your thing, more individualistic, and also the architecture reflects that, because when we were talking about the hidden gems of what you mentioned of Lima, I would like to point out that Lima is a mix of cities. Lima isn't like maybe neighbors like Chile or Colombia, where you can see the same setup of neighborhoods when you can see maybe in Chile. They are like all modern but like homogeneous. Lima has from pre-Spanish, like archaeological sites in itself, like Huacas, like in the outskirts of Lima, there is Caral that is a 5,000-year-old archaeological place, where that it is in fact the first city in the Americas, the whole continent of Americas. So Lima is that, but also is the Spanish influence, the colonial architecture. You can see some influences from Spanish cities, and also you can see influences in the Republican time from France, from UK, from even American Art Deco buildings. So it is all of that, because Lima is like, it's individualistic, but also it is like it has been built like for many centuries and with many influences. So you can see that Lima is a huge city of contrast. You will find that like in one point of the city, you are going like south for 30 minutes, and you can think to yourself that, oh, is it the same city? Maybe I am in another city, another province, but no, Lima is from the shores of Lima. That you can go to the beach. You can go. You have a capital with a city sunset.
Okay, so football is a hot topic in South America. Everyone knows football in South America, and me as a football fan, I really want to consume more knowledge about the football of Peru, especially the Peruvian national team. And based on my research, the last time Peru went into the World Cup was in 2018. Prior to 2018 was like 36 years ago, in the 80s. In that time period, there was a player who named Cubillas, was considered one of the greatest football player in history, not only in Peru but in the whole history of football. And actually, Cubillas has led them to the quarterfinals twice in the World Cup tournament. So, Alvaro, what you consider in that time period was the greatest of football history of Peru?
Yeah, that was a very good thing of Peru. The best of we won the Copa America against Brazil, I think. We beat Brazil in semifinals, and yeah, that was the best side. We have not only Cubillas, we also have Cesar Cueto, también the captain of Peru, Chupitas, and also Cholito Sotil. That was a Barcelona player of that time, one of the few foreigners in Barcelona. Yeah, that was a squad that we didn't have anything similar until this day. The closest squad that we have was the last that went to the World Cup that play a very good football, but in quality there has never been any better team.
So, two of the biggest football countries in South America, which is Brazil and Argentina, they have different playing style. So, let's say Brazil. As a Brazilian player, they're affected by the impact of samba, and they love to play the beautiful game, so-called Joga Bonita. And in Argentina, they play more like a gaucho, let's say playing with the street smartness, as they called Viveza Criolla. So my question is, how do you see Peruvian's football style?
Oh, when we are in our best form and we got our best squad, and I would say that the best squads that we have, they all played with like similar to that tiki taka, but more with the skills that, for example, the gambeta. I don't know what is the word in English, but it is a real definition of Peruvian play style. But we tried to replicate so many times with players that weren't that fit into that mold was that tiki taka like Barcelona. But for that style of play we have to have some players that can actually play in that sense. And we don't have any of that these days. Many of our players learn to play properly in a sense that in a professional way in Europe. So in Europe they are more used to the athleticism and not that tiki taka. I think that the last squad that was closest to that, I think again, is that 2018 squad that it was very good when we played Croatia. Okay, we beat them before the World Cup. We beat them in like I think 3-1, and we played so good that game that many were calling our team the black horses of the World Cup, but we fell short in that sense.
So the next topic will be a bit heavy and could be quite arbitrary. It's about the politics. So after 2 weeks, there will be a big election in Peru for presidency. As a local Peruvian, how do you see this election could affect the future of Peru?
Well, I think this is the most important election since 20, 2011, like from in the last 10 years. I think this election is so highlighted by uncertainty and weak political parties, and also proposals that even though the candidates that are today running for president, from the outlook they seem like they have a chance of going to the second round and be presidents. Um, I think this this election is marked by that uncertainty in every aspect of it. So the political views or ideologies, I think they are secondary, and Peruvian people will will have the benefits or the suffering of bad policies that are made in regarding the economy and the security of the country. If the candidate that wins the election and the party that wins the election can will fight not only the corruption but the insecurity and also the economy. They won't do anything crazy. They won't put that budget in deficit. I think that Peruvians are really worried that political parties and also political figures that are somewhat legitimate to, or that carry somewhat legitimacy to the people, that they won't be anywhere in the new parliament and in the new presidential institution that will be formed after the election. So this is also a tricky moment to have an election because we are going from kind of balance between the big global powers that are China and United States to a almost subtle fight for political influence. So I think that what Peruvians are worried today is that this uncertainty will be like Russian roulette, and that we're gonna get the ballot and not the salvo that is harmless. And people in the country is in a pivotal moment at this point.
So let's imagine there is a kid who was born in 2026, and after 20 years, it's now 2046. And from your perspective, Alvaro, what do you think in current situation in Peru? What do you think is the most essential thing that must be fixed or must be done in Peru right now?
Oh, I think that Peru today has to consolidate and also finish long-term projects that have been carried since 1950s. You have the Chavimochi project. That is a huge irrigation project in the north of Peru that can turn thousands of square miles to land able to grow, to be used for agro-industrial purposes. You also have the big challenge in the infrastructure of the country. Peru must go through a period of heavy in modernization and also have more modern airports, seaports, and also modern roads. So the biggest projects that are postponed like for so many decades, they should just go into effect this next 5 years, because we are not going to have many more opportunities to land this project into reality. Peru has today the possibility and the capacity to carry on this project if there is one leadership that is committed to that. From tomorrow would really value more that these projects are being carried and built more than any ideological project or maybe even economical changes. There were also investors from America, from the United States, from China, from Europe that wanted to carry on these projects. And there is also a very huge opportunity there, also in airports, because Peru is divided by the Andes. The Andes are really another frontier for Peru. So in the Amazon, we actually don't have many interconnection ways, because even we have even one city that is isolated in the Amazonas, that is Quitos, that there is no road that goes directly to that city. So you can see that Peru has a huge opportunity to develop if it invests on those projects. Even in the case of Lima, we had the old airport like for 60 years, and we just built a new airport that is huge, that is the biggest airport in airport city in South America. So we are in the position to have these projects and make those a reality. And the interconnection of provinces in Peru has been always a problem. And if we solve those topics, we would have a better country. We will have more developed provinces. We can also have not only Lima, but other huge cities, or maybe cities from medium size, like 5 million people, like 4 million. And also not only focus all the urbanization efforts in Lima and make those other cities in Peru be better to investments for living, and not repeat the same mistake that we made in Lima. That is, that Lima was built like without any planification. So I think Lima has more to do with old European capitals that also were built when roads weren't for cars, but well for smaller ways of transport. And so Lima is sometimes Overcrowded. It doesn't really has much more spaces. Lima is really just it can only grow in height because it is filled. There is no free land in Lima. We can change this pattern and make those other cities better, have a better planification, be more modern, because Lima is certainly a capital that is quite old in that sense.
I think if the project could really succeed, and let's imagine now it's 2050, all those transportation is constructed, all those airports, seaports are built. It's so easy from letting people or as local citizen could travel from Chancay to Lima. What will it be like if that really happened? And will you think it is a high possibility to make it happen?
I think Peru has one of the greatest potential in South America. And for me, Peru it's in some way similar to Brazil in that sense because Brazil also had was the center of the Portuguese colonies in South America. Brazil was the is a place where cultures, races, nationalities mix in a way that almost no other place in the world had. And also, Peru, in a sense, also had that in the coast, but it is like forming its own identity again in the modern world, in a sense that the Andean culture that was very local is being exported to other countries and other continents. And nowadays, it's like Peru takes that pride in and like to build on that. So if these projects go on, I think those projects will be the best example of that mindset, that new identity going into reality. So we should, if these successes, or maybe not even the full, only the half of that goes well, I think we will see cities blooming not only in the coast but in the Amazonas, in the Andes. There are many places where there are people willing to and capable of building their own cities in a better way that Lima had. And I think even Limanians would like to go to Arequipa, to Chiclayo, to Piura, Cajamarca, Tarapoto, Iquitos, places that are beautiful, but that are really not that modern. Well, with the exception of Chiclayo, Piura, and Arequipa, that are the small cities, but they aren't like anywhere in the scale of Lima.
So, in general, I think it's the polarity of it. It's not only about the people, it's not only about the city, it's not only about culture, but all those things combined together to build a better future of this country. So, my last question, Alvaro, is that if you are president of Peru or a leader of Peru, what's the one sentence you would likely to share?
Well, that when we work together, and as long as we work, we will rise again. Like every time we we had trouble, so we're going to be okay as long as we work.
And as for people who doesn't know about the culture of Peru, what would you like to say to them?
Well, I would say that Peruvians are really flattered when people from another culture, another country, really far from this continent, tries to understand us, to get to know our history, because it's a really intricate one. So making the effort of having that point of view of learning how Peruvians see the life after all we have been through is really feels really great, to be honest.
We thank you again for Alvaro for joining our episode, for sharing those great insights of Peru. I never been to Peru, but I believe that one day we'll meet in Peru, and I would like to check out so many places in Peru. And I thank you again for coming to this episode.
It'll be a pleasure to have you here in Peru and showing you my city, friend. And also, I would like to go to Taiwan to I don't know maybe meeting again, but in the other part of the ocean.